When can you give people basically a history of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah.
They were discovered in like the early 1900s. Is that right?
So the scrolls were discovered in 1946.
Oh, 1946.
The first ones were discovered in 1946. So sometime in February, and this is a famous story, sometime in February 1946, a couple of shepherd boys were looking along the western shore of the Dead Sea in the caves there. Anyone who's been to Israel or to the Dead Sea will know that along the cliffs, they're literally honeycombed with thousands and thousands of caves. And so these boys are looking for a lost sheep among these caves. One of them throws a rock into one of the caves and hears the breaking of pottery. They muster the courage to go in, and they find these linen wraps that have scrolls in them. Scrolls are made of leather. They take them back with them to camp. Some of the stories at this point, here we have a number of pictures of some of the manuscripts in situ. But some of the stories at this point get kind of interesting, because what you're dealing with is the recollections of these Bedouin sheep herders and when they discovered things and what happened to them. Some of the things that we have heard is that when the first of these manuscripts were discovered, they set them on a tent peg, and they just sat there in the wind and the rain for several months before anyone ever decided to do anything with them. Over the course of a number of months, eventually they took these things that they found into the markets in Bethlehem and tried to find someone who would be interested in buying them, not very successfully. People weren't interested in them until they encountered a Syrian Orthodox Palestinian by the name of Khalil Iskander Shahin. His nickname is Kando. I don't know why he's called that, but that's how he's widely known. He was a cobbler, fixed shoes, but he also was starting to deal in antiquities, and he recognized that on these leather rolls they have writing on them. So he thought, well, maybe this is something interesting. Maybe this is something valuable. So he took two of them and contacted his metropolitan, so the leader of his church, thinking they were Syriac manuscripts. Syriac is a form of Aramaic. This is the language of the Eastern Orthodox Church. The old Orthodox Church. So thinking it was Syriac, he took them to the metropolitan, like the priest, to look at them, and he recognized right away, no, it's not Syriac, it's Hebrew, and it looks like it's really old. So, over the course of about a year, they determined that these are probably really old. They got in contact with experts at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem to take a look at the manuscripts that they had. And the one gentleman that they got in contact with, his name is Eliezer Sukenik. He was a professor of archaeology at the Hebrew University, and he came out to the church where these things were being held, and he looked at the manuscripts and he got really excited because these, based on his just visual examination, these looked like potentially the oldest Hebrew manuscripts ever discovered. And importantly, the one manuscript was a large copy of the book of Isaiah, which is a book in the Bible. And this would be one of the earliest biblical manuscripts discovered.
Prior to discovering these, what was the earliest Hebrew manuscript ever discovered?
The Leningrad Codex, which dates to about the 10th century AD. So the Dead Sea Scrolls date between the
1,000 years.
second. It's like you're pushing the clock back 1,000 years, which is why scholars got really, really excited about this discovery. So it sounds like sort of a providential moment too. This is certainly the way that Sukenik paints it, because at the time, the scrolls were discovered in 1946. He didn't actually see them until November 1947. Sorry, no, it was November 1946. Yeah, that's right. But at the time, the British mandate in Palestine was just coming to an end. This is, at the end of the Second World War. Tensions in Jerusalem and in the region were very high. Mm-hmm. And in order for him he had to get from Jerusalem to go see the stuff in Bethlehem. And in order for him to get from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, he had to get passes to travel through military checkpoints.
Wow.
And ended up seeing the manuscripts. There were 3 of them that he saw. Mm-hmm. One was a copy of the book of Isaiah. Excuse me. We'll cut that stuff out, right? Sorry.
No, you're good, man.
So happens. One was a copy of the book of Isaiah. There was another manuscript that is now called the Chodayot, which is a Hebrew word that just means thanksgiving songs. And it's like a collection of prayers and songs. And then the third manuscript that he had is called the War Scroll, which is it's like this wild telling of the last days when the angels of God are going to meet with the demons and the forces of evil in this final climactic battle. So these last 2 are texts that are not in the Bible. These are texts nobody had seen before this time. So they found, he saw these 3 manuscripts, got really excited about them, convinced his university, the Hebrew University, that they needed to buy them. So he got the funding to go back and purchase them, made the journey once again, this harrowing journey through military checkpoints, taking his life into his own hands to go and purchase these 3 manuscripts, and got them back home securely on the evening of the 29th of November, which was the same day that the United Nations had voted on the proposal of the independent state of Israel. So he's reading the text of the oldest copy of Isaiah known to man at this point, and he's listening on the radio to the United Nations make the announcement of the founding of the state of Israel. And in his own private diary, Sukenik wrote about this. He said, this moment of tremendous significance I celebrated in my own home. One was political and the other was cultural. Wow. So it felt like destiny, right? And since that moment, the history of the Dead Sea Scrolls, their discovery and their significance has been wrapped up in the history of the state of Israel. So, in the original discoveries, the scrolls were featured in museum displays and discussed by the earliest prime ministers and presidents as almost guarantors of their legitimacy as a nation.
Right.
So, and this, it's something that I mean, there's a lot more to say here in terms of just the ways in which the scrolls were collected by scholars and how they were published, and then how scholars and politicians really kind of use this material as a means to forward their own ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.